Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo.
Welcome, everybody. We're episode 5 of the Your Cre8tivity podcast. It's a podcast featuring interview questions with designers, comedians, filmmakers, and others exploring their creativity, their struggles, and what ultimately drives them. Now, last week was Steve's first episode.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
Yeah, good.
Good. Did you have a good time last week?
Yeah, it was great.
I heard you have a question for me.
No, well, I just asked if all of our guests were going to be Mormon-themed, like, I don't know, webcast or movie people. Just a question.
Just for the 5 to 6 weeks.
Okay, because, like, I really have to tame my tongue, and it's really hard, like, way hard sometimes. So for that audience, just bear with me. I mean, Jesus forgives, so, I mean, bear with me.
Okay.
Sasha can, like, blur me out if he needs to. He will have to beat me a few times.
Okay. So once we get through those 5 or 6 weeks, you can let loose.
No, I'm going to do it now, too. I mean, I can't, like, really control this stuff. So that's, like, pretty much it.
Okay. This week, we've got another new co-host. We're going to be adding new co-hosts every week, too.
Howdy, Dylan.
Howdy.
No, I'm just kidding. Am I? I'm from the South.
Hi.
Just kidding. It's Andrea. What's up, guys?
We had her back on episode 2.
You did. You just can't get rid of me.
No.
I came back. I was a guest, and then I was like, well, screw that. I'm coming back as a host. Taking over.
And then you invited me to be an extra on your show.
Man, we keep it in the family.
Yep.
It's nice and ancestral.
That is so TMI. Okay, like, yeah, I mean, that's like...
But Steve's worried that it's him that's going to do all the problem, but yet he doesn't realize it is me.
And I'm sitting there. Okay, yeah, people that are listening, we're in a studio. I am stuck right by her, and it's like crazy because I can't get out. So
Yeah, there's no going. I've got him in the corner, and that's where he's going to stay.
I might be texting people, help, let me out of the room.
Dylan's over here giggling.
So if you guys get that message, it's going to be 2 days later. I might need food also, so...
Might, but we've got Dr. Pepper for him, and all is well.
Dr. Pepper, water. Yep.
Liquid dinner.
And whatever other snacks we can find here.
Yeah.
We'll raid the fridge.
I'm hoarding all the beer and whiskey. Steve just has Dr. Pepper and water.
And water.
Well, you better drink up because you're going to need to use that bottle for,
Oh my gosh.
My goal is to make Steve blush. We've just met, by the way, for you listeners out there. Steve and I are playing around with Dylan, and Steve and I met about, 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, okay, good. And my goal is to get his cheeks as rosy as possible.
Long ago.
All right, Dylan. Back on track.
Back on track. We've also got guests.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And this kind of caught me off guard when I got a message from you guys, because I just barely started. Usually you have some type of following before people ask to be on.
We should tell them who the guests are. The listeners still are just curious about who these guests
Dylan
are.
has groupies.
Well, I'm building.
These ambiguous no-name people.
They are Davey and Bianca. They are filmmakers, and they also have got a web series. Welcome. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah, doing well.
Good to hear.
They are not just Dave and Bianca. They are a power couple.
Power couple.
Because they're married.
They're married.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna have to discuss all that during this.
Yeah, that's great. We're the Morrison Dillards, and we're married. Woohoo!
Now, I'm curious about the double last name. Explain that a little bit.
Who's really a Morrison?
Davey's maiden name is Morrison, and my maiden name is Dillard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I always was jealous that girls got to grow up and get a different last name. And when me and Bianca first started dating, Bianca was like, I want to keep my last name when I get married. And so, or I want to combine last names when I get, what were you like?
I was like, you take my name. And then I was like, well, let's combine names. That's a good like middle ground. Like I think like we wanted to like we liked the idea of having like a unified last name, right? As opposed to me hyphenating or like me keeping my last name. Like we liked that sort of like idea of unity. But we also wanted to like honor both families. My last name is my mom's maiden name as well, so we kind of wanted to like pass on like, you know, the matriarchy and the patriarchy. So
when you guys are putting your name together, I mean, both of you guys are filmmakers and writers and all that kind of stuff. You're like Morrison Dillard, Dillard Morrison. Like try to rhythmically figure out what was going to be the name.
yeah, we just didn't like the way Dillard Morrison sounded. We thought it was stupid. So that's the only reason. There's no hierarchy. We just thought it sounded better.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I like it.
Very, very cool.
I kind of like them both.
Kind of. Do you have a preference? Is there like a
No,
50%?
I mean, they're both good.
Steve's leaning towards Dillard. You guys just don't know that. It's like 70%. He's like, Dillard's way cooler. Morrison, getting him in trouble.
Oh my goodness.
Well, you know, I have a funny story about that. Like my name, my legal name is Andrea Peterson. My maiden name was Kyle. But one of my first just freak random independent film, like not even independent, it was like a 48-hour film festival. Someone saw on Facebook that my name was Andrea Kyle Peterson, and it literally was just that because nobody could find me after high school. So I put my maiden name on there so they could look me up. But because that one 48-hour random film festival, I got an IMDb credit as Andrea Kyle Peterson, and then people just started tagging that. And so actually my professional independent film name is Andrea Kyle Peterson just because of that.
Yeah, it's a pain, man. IMDb trying to like
Change
combine
things.
stuff like from before we changed our names. Like it's a pain.
Yeah, and
So I feel you.
Yeah, because I remember thinking when I changed my name when I got married, it was like no big deal, but it was just like, yeah, cool, Andrea Peterson, fun. But then it was like, I'm not famous then, or not that I'm famous now. I'm not saying that at all, but people don't know me.
Right.
My name's not like determined. Now that people do know me as Andrea Kyle Peterson, I'm kind of like, crap, I can't go back.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm just listening. I mean, yeah, pretty much. I'm just listening.
Well, we should jump in and talk to them.
Let's jump into the questions.
Jump in, Dylan.
We've already kind of started on this a little bit. They're a power married couple, but describe what you do.
In what capacity? Like on this film or just like generally?
You know how
You guys
you're
are very
married.
specific, aren't you? I mean, you're very deliberate and very specific. So I am like one that's just woo. I mean, if I get there, I eventually get there. But it's like, yeah. I mean, do you have personal goals? What do you do personally, or what do you do professionally? Or I don't know. When you're at home, what do you do? Are you bored? What TV do you watch? Do you watch TV? Do you read? What kind of books do you read? Or what about games? Do you play games? Are you guys into the Pokemon Go?
Yes.
Yay, me too.
Oh my gosh, you guys got excited about that.
I was led to believe there would be 8 questions only. So I'm
And-
prepared to answer 8 questions.
Yeah.
So, like, what are we up to? It's like 20
You were
questions.
so wrong.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, you
I'm
have
just
3
teasing
questions
you.
left.
Yeah, but Pokemon Go is so exciting, right? Do you guys play?
Oh, I totally
What team are you?
I'm Instinct.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those things that we got up there and it was like, okay, red, blue, or yellow. I was like, well, everybody's red or blue, so I'm totally going yellow.
Yeah.
That's how I decided. What about you guys?
It's like the better logo, and I feel like also the better like ethos, you know, like
Yeah.
that, like trust in your like innate power
Totally.
as opposed to like, you know, yeah.
Yeah, and while red and
we
blue
liked
are
the myth.
fighting,
Yeah.
we're over here actually playing.
Yeah, totally.
Giggling and laughing. So what, like, okay, as being like a couple, then let's talk about that. Like you guys, I mean, a lot of people say opposites attract, or, you know, you're in a relationship where the husband and wife do like completely different things or don't work together. You guys are in, I know you guys have different strengths and stuff, but you guys are in a similar field. So just, you know, maybe talk about what drew you guys. I can speak English, words fail me. What drew you guys together, and, you know, like, what is the chemistry between you
Wait,
two?
I don't even know what the hell they do yet. So, like, I mean,
Oh,
like,
they're
so, like,
filmmakers, Steve. Catch up. We did say that.
well, I mean, I got
We
the
play
Ivy,
Pokemon
whatever.
Go.
Yeah, they play Pokemon Go. They like have the same last
What
name.
else
Like,
do you want? Yeah.
All right, I'll do the. Would you like to do the official introduction of them? Did we just jump in right to their names, Dylan? All right.
We can also,
Davey and
actually
Bianca.
answer the question.
We can introduce ourselves.
There you go. Let them introduce themselves.
I was just being difficult.
We are a
Like, we
difficult
are.
show.
So we both do a lot of the same things. I'm an actor and a writer and a director of things. I work primarily as an actor, and then we write and direct our own projects together a lot of the time in film and in theater as well. So that's what I do.
So I am also an actor and a producer and a dramaturg, and I direct things. Those are the things that I do. I work in film and theater, both. It's great.
So how did you guys meet, and like what drew you guys together?
Wait, how did we meet? What was the second part?
And then what drew you guys together?
Oh.
I mean, it was instant. They fell in love immediately. The first moment they met, it was at a gas station.
Yeah, we both went to school together. We both went to BYU together. I was studying film and Bianca was studying theater. And so we knew of each other for probably about a year or so before we ever actually had a conversation together. We'd seen each other in projects and things like that.
And then my friend, we'd both seen each other act and like do other projects. So I have a friend who loves artsy movies, and his wife doesn't really like to go see artsy films with him. So he called me up on the phone and was like, "Hey, come to this like crazy art house film about Bob Dylan where it's played by like 4 different people." And he's like, "It's the last night, so you have to come with me tonight." And he's like, like bring your roommate or something so it's like not weird. So me and my friend, he's a male friend, right? With my roommate, we all like show up to the movies together. And Davey is there at the movie theater, and that's the first time that we actually spoke. And he was friends with my other friend. And it actually turned out to be like a little bit more weird because Davey was like trying to figure out like this person is not David's wife. This person is not David's. Like what's happening? So anyway, that's kind of a funny.
That's always fun. You're
meet
like,
cute,
we're a bunch of friends hanging out, and this is friend
it's,
weird.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah.
We want to avoid awkwardness as much as possible.
What was the movie? It was the Bob Dylan.
Yeah, it's called I'm Not There.
Okay.
Heath
How long
Ledger
ago
and
was
a
that?
bunch of others. Oh,
I think that was 2008, maybe. Yeah, 2008 would have been. Yep, that's when I was.
There you go. 2008.
So and then we started dating. A few weeks later, we went out on a date shortly thereafter. Started dating a month or two later, a couple months later, and also started working on projects together.
What you guys don't see out there as listeners is Bianca analyzing Davey's answers.
the timeline's appear to be off.
It's a little gray. Bianca, what is your side? Marriage counseling in the studio.
I guess my side is like I don't know exactly when we started officially dating.
It was when I was out of town.
Was
It
it?
was like July.
Okay, just no offense. How do you officially date when one of you is out of town? Because that just doesn't. I mean, is that how the relationship works? Are you guys always in separate areas? Like, so you started dating when you were out of town. Davey's nodding yes.
Maybe so. I don't remember.
It's gray on both sides.
Okay, this
the good
is like
news is
the
now they're
shadiest,
married.
introduction.
They're married
Thank
and they
you.
work together.
Yeah, we worked together.
Did you
I was
text
gonna
back
tell.
and forth?
I'm
Crickets
not
chirping.
Sure. Sorry. Like I was just gonna. I'm not sure. Probably. Did we text? Did we have text messaging then?
I think so. Yeah, that was when when you officialized it.
Yeah.
Was where
Because Davey was trying to date me for like if you notice, he said like weeks, and then he changed his story to months
Aw.
because he was trying to date me, and it just took a while for me to like warm up to the idea of dating him. And then, yeah,
He's charming.
he is charming.
You better be careful. Steve's
charmer.
eyeing him. Davey. Well, you guys are working on a project. That's why you guys are here.
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
What are you guys working on?
So we are working on a web series called Adam and Eve that we produce and direct together. I wrote the scripts, and Bianca helped develop the scripts. And we've been shooting. We have 4 episodes up online right now, and we've been working on some more. What else should we say?
It's about 2 Seabro heroes in Madagascar, right? Who like learn how to make fire.
Correct.
Just kidding. What is it about?
So it's about, we often describe it as a Woody Allen style romantic comedy about Adam and Eve. Davey also acts in it, so that's fun.
He
It's
plays
our first-
Eve, right?
Yes, that's correct. So it is, I don't remember. It's fine.
I'm sorry. She was like, "Wait, Davey playing Eve?"
Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time.
No,
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, we're into gender bending, but
Yeah.
we'll get back to that later. Playing, we both act. We've both played. We work in a Shakespeare company. It's an original practice Shakespeare company, and one of the things that Shakespeare did was that the men played all the roles, and so as a nod to that, we do a lot of all male shows. We've done some all female shows, and we do. To a certain extent, like gender blind casting. So I've played a lot of men. Davey has played a lot of women. It's great.
Wait, cool. So I was curious, not to hijack this conversation, but like you guys are doing a web series, and I've seen the first episode, and it's killer. It's like so good. Like it's written really well. It's acted really well. It looks beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
Obviously produced amazing. It's phenomenal. Like I'm actually jealous because I have my own web series. I'm jealous of like the production quality that you guys did. I want to know more. So like, where are you guys taking the story? Like I feel I'm not like trying to like dumb down, but it's Adam and Eve and 2 characters, and where do you go with that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Well, you'll find out. But yeah.
Oh, come on, give me a little bit.
So the premise, like Bianca said, is it's essentially a romantic comedy about Adam and Eve, and the first sort of little mini season that we have up online right now sort of tells one story about them picking up like immediately after getting kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and now they have to figure out how they interact with each other when they're the only people in the world, and that story sort of has its own little ending, and then the next stuff is going to pick up with, and that story is very much about, it was written when Bianca and I were first dating, and it's very much about, sort of courtship and dating and things like that. All the subsequent episodes were written after we got married, and they've very much sort of pick up with now that they have come together, what are sort of the conflicts and difficulties that come in a relationship that are sort of exacerbated by the fact that they are the only people in the world. They don't have anywhere else to go or anyone else to turn to. So that's still a very vague answer, I guess, but maybe gives you an idea.
Okay, I want to touch kind of. You guys are both really good at relationships and trying to figure out that. And you're talking about how you guys met and the introductions, the shyness, going through all the emotions. What advice would you give people that are actually out there dating right now? Through the dating, like the courtship, like the pros and cons, the struggles that you guys had, and maybe all the highlights, but then taking that from the first of the relationship through marriage. Like, do you have any advice for people that are married now? Like, what makes you successful and what has helped you?
I try to avoid giving advice, actually, because I just feel like everybody's relationship and everyone's temperament is so different. So, like, the things that will work for us, I feel like I used to be a big, like, advice person.
If you don't want to give advice, what works for you? And so you just deferred to.
I feel like one thing that works for us is that we work together, and that is a big part of our relationship, is that we are both into creating stuff together, and that is an important way of communicating, I think that is working on projects together, and also, watching things together and reading things and talking about things and stuff like that. I think that's a big part of our relationship, is just our shared interests. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, and I would say that we're both like to keep ourselves busy, and so we might not ever see each other if we weren't working on projects together. So I feel like it's a way that we can, keep in touch and it's like I feel like it's often quite challenging to work together. I feel like it's either like just going smooth and just fine, or it's like, oh man, this feels like the end of the world. So I feel like other collaborative relationships don't feel as high stakes as a marital relationship, because it feels like whenever there's a creative disagreements, it brings up all the rest of the disagreements about our in our normal life. So I mean, I feel like that's a reality that some people sort of can't handle. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like going back to the earlier question too, I think I don't know that this is general relationship advice, but I think something that is
What would Adam
central.
and Eve do?
Yeah, that's actually what I'm getting at, is something that's central to this web series, especially as it goes on, that I feel like comes out of being married for several years now, is that it becomes very much a story about commitment and about the value of commitment and finding value and meaning and creating value and meaning in a relationship, essentially by deciding to show up. That's part of Eve's big, as sort of the central conflict of the story, is that Adam is the only guy in the world, and Eve isn't necessarily all that into him initially, and
Wait,
so,
that was my relationships. All of my relationships have probably been that. Maybe there's still an Eve out there.
So
Yeah.
I'm curious about that. I mean, most people know the Adam and Eve story, whether they're believers or not. And it's basic. It's a man and woman created in God's image, and then they have kids, and it's really basic. And then there's so much that we don't know in poetic license. So talk to us a little bit about how you guys decided to tell the story and what you guys thought was important to bring in.
Yeah, I think the story is just is rich for the opportunity to riff on some of the very basic ideas and myths that we sort of all have in common. And so, in a Mormon frame of reference, likening the scriptures unto ourselves is something that we're taught from a pretty young age. And so, some people that feels like making a church movie. For us, it felt like making a romantic comedy. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like like you say, the Adam and Eve story it's because it's really well known that it seemed like an interesting way of getting at these questions, because we're not, obviously, if you watch the show, in any way trying to create a biblical epic. That's clearly not the tone or the aesthetic or anything that we're going for. We're using this sort of ancient story to...
But from a money standpoint, the Bible sold millions and millions, so you might want to listen to that. Just cha-ching is what I'm
Based on the
thinking. So from some of that,
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah.
Any copyright issues? Has God stepped up and this is not working? No, I'm just kidding.
You got a cease and desist. You need to change character names.
It's pretty clearly in the public domain.
Yeah.
We're not changing any names to protect the innocent.
Yeah.
You know what? I have to say again, I love y'all's. I love just the first episode that I've seen.
Thanks.
So the writing's incredible. Was Bianca? Did you work on that too, or that was just Davey? Because I want to give credit to both of you guys if it was both writing paired.
Yeah. So Davey is the writer, and I work as his dramaturg, which
Cool.
is sort of like a like an artistic consultant. So we talk about ideas, we work through them together, sort of bounce ideas off of each other. But Davey's the one who actually like sits down and types the words to the page. And he was the one who sort of originated this idea from the very beginning. So
I was definitely noticing, like, just, and again, a lot of this is directing but the writing and the directing, like, the speed of the language, I love it. It's got a high rhythm to it. It makes me think of, like Aaron Sorkin style, like quickness, and, you've got, I was thinking of West Wing, Newsroom, Gilmore Girls, but, and Scandal, like, those are just, it's so fast, just, it's witty, it's clever, and I love the energy of that. And this is not to, by any means, knock any other sort of religious or biblical film or thing out there, but they're a lot slower. They're a lot deeper. There's so much.
They're reverent.
Yeah, it's so positive. I love so much what you guys did with the speed and the language of it. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's really great to hear, because that's a big thing for me, is that rhythm of the language. And I feel like it, for me, it comes from like old screwball comedies from like the 30s and 40s, and that kind of like His Girl Friday is sort of the classic, super taken to the extreme example, where that movie must have had like a 250-page script for a 90-minute movie, because they talk so fast and they all interrupt each other. And that's not, I mean, we're not that crazy, but yeah, that sort of speed and energy, and it's for us, it was important because we're using this ancient story to talk about each other and ourselves and relationships today, and so we wanted to be drawing on more contemporary or recent past kinds of models. We wanted this to feel like a romantic comedy, with that sort of like rat-a-tat-tat rhythm in the dialogue, as opposed to a Bible movie or something, because it's not really that. I mean, it deals with questions about, God and faith and things like that, and finding your place in the world. But essentially, it's a story about two people who are stuck together. I mean, that's kind of the meet cute, is they're the only two people, and now they have to figure out how to make it work. So to me, first and foremost, it's a romantic comedy, and those were kind of the inspirations, were like Ernst Lubitsch movies and Billy Wilder movies and Howard Hawks movies and things like that, and Woody Allen and those kinds of people. As opposed to, I mean, there some religious movies and Bible movies that I like Noah a couple of years ago, I thought was a really cool movie, and it's a completely different approach to a Bible story than this is, in pretty much every way, and which is cool. It's cool, and I feel like that's the value of mythic sort of archetypal stories like that, is there's so much in the Adam and Eve story. It's, there's a love story component to it, at least potentially. There's a sort of coming of age element of leaving behind this place of sort of perfect innocence and being cared for. There's, the ideas about sin and what does that mean, and coming of age with sexuality and maturity of finding out how to just survive in the world. There's so much bound up in that really, sort of tiny story that is applicable across, millennia and across time and space, and it can also be funny, it turns out, hopefully.
The relationships part is what I really liked. I've watched them all. And at times, I would forget that it's an Adam and Eve story until, each other's names are mentioned, or the situation is mentioned directly. So that's what really drew me into it. When I got to the end of it, I'm like, where's the rest of them? Yeah. I was left wanting more.
I'd love for Bianca to talk a little bit from producing standpoint. Like, and this is a hard question, and it's meant just out of pure curiosity.
Sure.
But it's two people in the woods. Like,
I feel
where are
like
you going with it?
Yeah, I feel like that's the question that we get all the time is like, oh, that's like, that sounds pretty boring. Like, how are you going to pull off 25 minutes of that? And turns out we have five more books or chapters that are about that length. And I think, like Davey said, like, there's a lot to explore with relationships. I mean, I feel like, most of the media and writing and songs deal with love. And I feel like there's just a lot of fodder for that. I think it also talks about like our relationship with God and that like distance. This is, sort of the first time that Adam and Eve are like out on their own. We sort of joke about how like this is like two kids who sort of got kicked out of the house and they have to make it on their own for the first time. And I think there's also a lot that happens in that bridge from sort of courtship into marriage.
Yeah, and they're also we also wanted to approach it as we sort of thought about this series, because originally it wasn't a series. As I mentioned, this first script was written a few years before the other scripts were written, and it originally started off as a 10-minute play that we produced a few times, and then a few years ago we thought, we want to do another film project together. And what's something that we could do that we could, just get a few of our good friends together, go out to locations that are close by and that we don't have to, pay a bunch of money to rent out or whatever, and just kind of shoot with what we have, the resources we have. And so at that point I adapted the play. I was like, well, let's see if we could adapt this thing onto the screen and see if it would work. And I really liked how it worked as a screenplay and how it turned out as a film. And after I wrote the screenplay adaptation, I thought, I wonder, it feels like there's maybe more to this story. And so as we were approaching writing it as a series, though, we thought about it almost more as a series of like, you go to an art show or something and you see a series of paintings and they're all related, but it's kind of a different thing than watching Seinfeld or something like that. There's enough similarity and enough in common and enough sort of progression to a series like that for it to feel like a series, but they each kind of are their own individual separate paintings. And that's kind of the approach that we took with writing the series, is each one they build narratively, and they continue to tell sort of one larger serialized story. But each one has a very different sort of feel to it, and each one is a little bit of an experiment for us, doing something different stylistically and narratively with it. So they go in a lot of different directions, I think.
Yeah, I saw the progression too. At first, they were so nervous to talk to each other and to say the right thing. And then, but closer to the end, they were a lot more comfortable with each other. I love that progression.
Yeah, thanks.
So I have a question. There's different, I'd love for you guys just to talk to viewers out there, because I feel like a lot of people don't realize what goes into independent film, web series, or just like the idea of YouTube. Because I think even with web series, Davey and I met and talked about this one time. There's so many different styles. You have your talking heads who talk to their computer web series. You have random, just like Funny or Die sort of web series. The web series that I have, You Again, is like 5 to 10 minute sort of narrative fiction. And then you guys have more of a 30-minute, full episodic web series. Like, so talk to us a little bit, like what goes into all the blood and sweat of making something like this.
Yeah, totally. Ours is a little bit more like filmic in nature. We really appreciated. So, do you guys watch Louie? Louis C.K.
Louis
Yeah.
C.K.
series.
Yeah.
So that's another one where it's like it's the same character, lots of different situations, but it's just like stylistically different. Sort of there's some segments that are like, feel sort of more like skits. There's some segments that like take 3 or 4 episodes of a 30-minute TV show to tell, and so that's something that we're just really heartened by the idea that we could experiment in that way, and tie something together in that way. And yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Like you think like it was really important to us, this idea, like as filmmakers, you spend a huge disproportionate amount of your time fundraising and asking people permission to like do something. And so this was something that we just felt like a story that we really needed to tell. And so we wanted to do it in a way that we didn't sort of have to ask anybody's permission. So it has been funded out of pocket so far, just like what's in our savings account. We've been really blessed to work on a lot of really lovely projects where we were able to work with like, talented crew and cast. And so we've been lucky that way to just work with people that are just really good at what they do and excited to work on a project that they're excited to work on, that feels like a treat. And then it's just a lot of like doing everything else yourself, months and months of location scouting, just trying to get everybody's schedules together. I feel like those are 2 of the biggest things that took our time, was trying to find locations that met the needs of production and of, everyone on this first project. We weren't able to pay anyone. They were just doing it out of love for us and love for the project. And so we were working around people's school schedules and other work schedules, people's like childcare needs. And so, we shot here and there, just sort of half days when we could just get everyone together. Yeah, what would you say, Davey?
Yeah, it's, I think that unless you work on a film project in some capacity, it's hard to understand exactly what that process is because it's so specific and so detailed. And anytime you watch a movie, anything you see on screen, nothing is there completely by accident. Everything is there. There are happy accidents that happen in production, but everything is very carefully planned, and it has to be, or nothing can ever happen. There's a movie that I love that illustrates that's this behind the scenes making of documentary of Fanny and Alexander, this Ingmar Bergman movie from like 1982, and there's this great scene. It's a really fantastic documentary, and it's just a series of little snippets of the things that do go into making a movie. And I think about this scene every time I go to make a movie. There's this scene in that movie where, and I actually thought about this while I was watching Fanny and Alexander for the first time, because I think it was maybe shortly after we shot something. And there's this shot. It's just a wide shot. It's a period piece. And this like horse-drawn carriage pulls up outside of a building, and the characters get out and walk inside, and that's the shot. But in the shot at the beginning, before the carriage like turns the corner, there's this big lamppost, and there's a little black cat that runs out from behind the lamppost, and it's serves no story function at all. It's just sort of this little textural detail. And there's this great scene in this making of documentary where it's just take after take of the cat wrangler, like putting the cat behind the lamppost and then running as fast as he can out of this wide shot so that they can hopefully get this cool look of a cat running out from behind a lamppost that's, completely superfluous, but does add something to the shot. And I feel like that, to me, is just always a great demonstration of what filmmaking is. Like you see movies that are beautiful and they feel like beautiful works of art and they change your life, but the actual making of those movies is so much just comically ridiculous grunt labor like that of putting a cat in a place and hoping he stays there. Like that's what making a movie feels like, day in and day out. And it's and you shoot 12-hour days to get maybe 3 minutes of screen time if you're lucky, and it's an intense process, but it's also a ton of fun.
Yeah, I would say, like, this isn't relationship advice, so I feel comfortable with it. But I would say, like, absolutely, like, do something that you have control over, like absolutely put in that work and see what about it you love and what about it you hate. And, even if you don't ever do another project, like I would say, if someone wants to make a film or has an idea, like absolutely, put those puzzle pieces together and try to work it out. It might be the hardest thing you've ever done, but like.
For all of us that love you guys, what can we do to help you? Where do you want us to go from here?
Yeah, we are raising money on Patreon.com, which is a crowdfunding platform for artists with ongoing projects or who are releasing things on an ongoing basis. So the way it works is it's essentially like Kickstarter. You get, but unlike Kickstarter, you are not billed anything until after the project is released. So it works. You pledge per episode. So you can pledge a couple dollars per episode, and every time we release a new episode, you'll be billed a couple dollars. And we also, you can get sort of extra behind the scenes stuff and things like that. So if you go to patreon.com/AdamandEve, that's where we're currently raising money and hoping to raise enough to keep telling the story.
And for all you guys out there, like just because it's called a web series, it by no means like is anything. They are not shooting on their iPhones. Like this is cinematically beautiful footage. The acting's incredible. It's definitely professional grade quality work out there. So I know like some people are like, oh, it's a web series. I know what that means. It's not. It's not just a silly fuzzy streaming YouTube video. Like this is quality work that Davey and Bianca have put together. I can't praise it enough. Like the first time I saw it in a movie theater, because they did a showing of it, I don't know, a couple months ago when you guys released the first episode. And it's that's the crazy thing that I can't reiterate enough to like listeners out there that like independent filmmakers, just because it says indie or independent or web series doesn't mean you're getting less quality. In fact, you're probably getting just as much quality on less money, and you're getting more passion and heart put into a project than something that's, no offense to Michael Bay and Transformers, but they have the money, they have the studios, they have the names to do this. And, Ava DuVay said this, I think she was being interviewed right around the Selma release time stuff. But she was like, yeah, as an independent filmmaker, she's like, you are trying to create work that is of the same quality on a paperclip. Basically. And it's because as independent filmmakers, we have to put ourselves at that level to even get noticed and seen, but at less money. And I can't say enough about Adam and Eve. You guys really, again, it's the God story, Adam and Eve, but it's like you guys said, it's about a relationship. And I love how you guys creatively twisted that, not twisted, I don't know if that's not the right word. It kind of comes with a negative connotation, but you guys just really used those two characters to create, like you said, it's a romantic comedy. Like it really is. It's not a conversion story. It's not anything like that. And you guys have just done an amazing job, and just major kudos to you guys.
Yeah, thank you. That's really lovely feedback.
And Bianca, you did answer your question about relationships and what you guys do to stay together. You kind of did it indirectly. And what I've observed and just listened is the whole thing's about commitment. And so even your series, the story of like Adam and Eve, the reason that two people that were like total duds are just thrown in together, they have a commitment to a project that they love, which you guys surely do with the web series. And that's why you do it. And that's actually what comes through, is that you love what you're doing. And I would say that transpires with your relationship. There's always ups and downs, but it's the commitment and loving what you're doing That's why I think you're still together. Does that work?
Thanks. Yeah, that's great. That's great feedback. And I would also say, like, about independent filmmaking and web series, like, I think it's an exciting time. Like, it's just like there's a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of really quality stuff. And you get to sort of like make your own rules. Like, not only do you not have to ask permission, but you get to make up, your own rules. Like, how long does it need to be? Well, it needs to be as long as this episode needs to be. You don't have to write in so many laughs per minute before a commercial. Like, you have this opportunity to really have more control than you would in a lot of other mediums. And so, like, that's why this felt like a web series, because this felt like it needed to be its home, not because of any other reason.
You guys have also worked together on another big project together. We talked about at the beginning, the gender swapping and dressing up.
That's right.
The Grassroots Shakespearean Festival.
Yeah,
Tell us
Grassroots
about
Shakespeare Company.
Shakespeare Company. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was actually the summer we were engaged that some friends of ours started this theater company and invited us along for the ride. And essentially Bianca may have already talked about it. I can't remember what all we said about it earlier, but the idea behind it is we do Shakespeare plays the way that we base how we do the Shakespeare plays on how theater was done when Shakespeare was around, which is completely different from theater today. When you go to a play today, it's generally a very, like a Bible movie. It's a very reverent event. You sit down and, put your program under your seat so that the pages don't rustle and the lights dim, and you very politely know when to clap and when not to make noise.
You don't charge your phone on an on-set outlet.
Exactly, yes. Yep. And Shakespeare's theater was very different. It was a very rowdy. It was much more like a carnival or like a sporting event or something like that. It was the entertainment of the day, and there were sporting components to it. They'd have things like bear baitings, these essentially dog fights where they'd have a dog and a bear fight each other on stage before the show and things like that. Like it was just a wild, crazy environment, and the patrons in the crowd were shouting at the actors on stage. And so we perform with a similar process. We have very little rehearsal time, as they would have. We don't have a director. Directors, the idea had not been invented when Shakespeare was alive. We have no designers. Actors design all their own clothes. We perform on a bare stage, no scenery. And Shakespeare's plays, you read the plays, you see the plays, and he paints the picture for you. The beginning of Henry V, he says, imagine, tells you all the things you should imagine, because they don't have the ability to build this, building beautiful, intense, intricate scenery was not a part of the thing at the time. So it's a really fun, vibrant, rowdy atmosphere. We encourage our audiences, like Elizabethan audiences, to talk back to us, to answer questions when we ask them on stage, and it's a real blast. It creates a very different. If you've seen Shakespeare before and have not seen a grassroots show or a show by another original practice sort of style theater troupe, it's just a very different experience to experience Shakespeare.
Yeah, and it's great as an actor as well. Your main acting partner is the audience, and there's just an honesty and in the momentness, that's not a real word, that comes from an acting partner who hasn't been rehearsing with you. And it's just really lovely as an artist as well, and like fun for the audience. I sort of get like bored sometimes at other like Theater. I mean, I get spoiled. I watch a lot of theater and I don't get bored. Like it's something that I love, but I do find myself when I'm not able to like really interact or relate with what's happening on stage. Like sometimes I do zone out a little bit, and I think that that ability to really participate is great as an audience member as well.
Yeah. In they estimate that in Shakespeare's theater, probably about 70-80% of the lines were delivered directly out to the audience, and that was for logistical reasons, among others, because you're performing outdoors for thousands of people at the Globe Theater, and how are they going to hear you if you turn up stage to talk to your scene partner? They're not, and so you have to cheat out to the audience and project out to the audience. And also the whole idea of the fourth wall that we think about in theater, that the actors on stage are not aware of you as an audience, that idea kind of didn't exist in the world yet, because it was impossible at that time for anyone to be in a public space watching someone without that person being aware of being watched. We didn't have cameras, we didn't have, one-way glass, we didn't have any of those technological developments that could introduce this idea of a fourth wall to us, that sort of came in the 19th century. And so it was a very sort of communal, participatory, it almost feels like a revival church house or something, this call and response thing. And it really changes the way the plays function, if Hamlet is out on stage saying to be or not to be and talking to himself for 5 minutes, that's a very different experience and dynamic to the scene than if Hamlet comes out on the stage and is looking you in the eye on the front row and addressing this question to you and welcoming your input, like working through these ideas with you together, gives him somewhere to go with it, helps him develop the ideas and go somewhere with those soliloquies.
Yeah, it turns him from a crazy person who's just like thinking all these insular thoughts to like a person who like needs some advice. And I think that really changes the character and the way that we think about Hamlet.
I know we probably have to wrap up pretty quick. We're kind of
we're at 56.
We've managed to get through our 8 questions. If you can quickly, since you guys both do film and stage, talk a little bit about maybe some of the different experiences or expectations as an actor, because I don't think a lot of people realize how it kind of is a little bit different. Like you said, fourth wall. There is something different when a camera is right up on your face versus an audience that's like 10 rows back.
Yeah, something that I often tell, because a lot of my theater friends who start going into film, I think feel very intimidated, and I did as well, by it feels like a very different thing, a very different dynamic acting for a camera on a set with a handful of crew members and things like that versus acting for an audience that's immediately responding to what you're doing, and you have to reach the back row that may be, 100 feet away or something like that. But I feel like to me there are a couple of consistencies between theater acting and film acting, or I guess a couple of general principles that you want to keep in mind the style of both, because there is a wide variety of acting styles in both film and theater. If you're doing, if you're doing physical comedy, that's very different than if you're doing very serious naturalistic drama, and that's true across the board. And there's also proximity, like you're saying, acting with a camera in your face, you're performing for that camera and whatever lens is on that camera, however close it is to your face. And that's your audience. And that audience could be inches from your face versus, when you're on stage, or if it's a different kind of shot in a movie, then the audience could be so far away that all they can see is what you're doing with your entire body. And I feel like those two principles to me are the biggest differences between theater acting and film acting is that you generally have a closer proximity in film acting, and also the general style in film acting tends to be more naturalistic, though that's certainly not true of every project or of every kind of movie that you watch or want to be making, but I think those are the two things I would say.
Yeah, thumbs up. Me too.
All right, last question, Dylan. It's all yours.
What is your favorite variety of apple? I thought this would be a fun question considering the...
Adam and Eve, yeah.
Yeah.
I really like Fuji apples. I just think they're like crisp and yummy tasting.
I'd probably go Golden Delicious, although it's really a toss-up with Fuji apples as well, actually, but I'm going Golden Delicious.
I like the Washington greens, the...
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
I used to call them soda apples when I was little because they kind of taste like almost like bubbly, like a soda.
Yeah, exactly. Do you have one, Andrea?
I don't like apples. I don't.
You like oranges?
I do like oranges.
There
I
we
do
go, apples and
prefer
oranges.
citrusy things. I don't know. Apples always seem too dry, and the funny thing is, they're watery. But when I bite into them, I always get more thirsty. And yeah, I don't like apples. Steve,
You just haven't had them good. So the best, chocolate dipped. So actually, you dip them in caramel, Granny Smith apples, and then dipped in chocolate. There you go.
or I could just use my finger in the caramel and chocolate.
You ever eat apple slices with cheese? That's a good combo.
No, I
You
haven't.
should try it, Andrea. You might like it.
I do
don't
like
know.
cheese. I do like cheese.
I also like apples with like a good nut butter, a peanut butter or like a tahini. Yeah.
Again, that's what the spoon's for.
Yeah. That's reasonable. Yeah.
Use the apple as the utensil.
Yeah, there you go. Then the apple will never get eaten. I feel bad saying that. I feel like that makes me inhuman. Everybody
You're
loves an
fine.
apple.
You're very anti-apple.
Yeah, you don't have to.
We're not apple growers, so we're not going
Andrea,
to
way
get
to screw
offended.
up. There goes the advertising. We're not getting the apple market.
I feel terrible. It's just like it's one of the things, or like tart stuff. People like tart stuff. I think it's just in my taste buds. I just like sweet tarts, or like anybody has like a dessert. Apples and tarts. I just can't do it.
Reasonable.
Thank you. Thank you, Bianca.
Next week.
Actually, coming up this week, we've got a few things. Andrea has an episode 5 dropping.
Ooh.
Right?
No, I
6?
don't. We have some information. I guess I can say it. We need to we're taking a pause on delivering episodes. We need to raise a little extra money for some post-production work. So we will actually be launching a Kickstarter, an additional Kickstarter. And we have a couple more episodes to do. And we did our Indiegogo back in April, and we only were able to raise about half of our budget. So I don't drain my personal pocketbook too much. We're going to try to see if we can get you guys to help us all out there, audience, listeners, and viewers. So we are going to take about a month hiatus to see if we can raise additional funds, finishing costs, and then we'll be able to bring you guys the rest of the episodes.
And eventually my episode will air.
Yes, eventually. Dylan played extra in episode 11.
I'm drunk in the background.
You were drunk in the background, and I was drunk in the foreground. Actually, speaking of drunk on apple juice, that was our shots.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we should.
Not your favorite.
No, it wasn't. And that was for episode 11. But when we're gonna have a bonus episode for viewers out there after the whole season goes through. But you get to find out how Xander and Audra actually met, and my character gets wasted at a bar on shots of apple juice. And during that entire shoot of the flashback episode, we did a behind the scenes video. Some of you guys might have seen it, but I think I went through 14 peeps,
that
like
one,
10 different Kentucky Fried Chicken pieces, and over 20 shots of apple juice. And yeah, I went method on that.
Yeah, I've been amazed at how much. I know it's a thing with that character in your show, and I love it that you eat in every episode. But that's commitment to your craft. I was in a Doritos spec commercial one time, and after that day of shooting, I never wanted to eat another Dorito again as long as I lived.
Yeah, I eat a lot of Cheetos. I still manage to like Cheetos. The only time that I ever was like, well, crap, I should have not done it that way is my character in episode 2 can't figure out the Keurig machine and stabs the coffee, pours it in hot water, stirs it with a Cheeto, and then later ends up dropping a lemon chunk in it. And I didn't think, hey, maybe instead of coffee grounds, use Oreos or
Right.
or don't actually drink it after you drop the lemon in it. But but the thing is, I put the entire lemon in my mouth, so it's already there. Yeah, I just, it came to one of those things that I think my co-star, Zach Reynolds, actually has a very, very weak stomach and gags very easily when I eat or drink some of this stuff. So then it kind of became one of those things that was like, I'm going to do it just to torture him on set. So it was more torture for him than me, I think.
Poke the bear.
We are going to have a Kickstarter. So guys, take a look for that.
And we'll get links out. And then at Steve's store on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Star
Well,
Trek.
Hatch Family Chocolates.
Hatch Family
we
Chocolates.
actually do our outdoor movies. So we do Avenues block parties. LDS Hospital is great to us, and they let us use their property. But on Friday, August 5th, we will be showing Star Wars, The Force Awakens. But prior to the movie, we have to wait until it gets dark enough for the movies, so around 9-ish. But we have a band playing, and it's Goran Sturbuck, and we call him the Chocolatiers. But whatever band he brings, Goran, he's amazing. They play jazz music. And then on the 19th of August, we will actually be showing Zootopia. So those are what's happening at Hatch Family Chocolates.
And Friday, I will be there in costume as Han Solo.
What?
Yeah.
All right.
Are you going to be
Woo, woo.
pre or post Kylo Ren?
I'll work on special effects this week, and we'll see. We'll see.
You guys, thanks so much for
Yeah,
coming.
thank you.
Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you guys.
thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, it was great hearing some back, after seeing all the episodes, what came to develop it all.
And follow them on social media. They do some really cool stuff. Their Tumblr feed and they've got great behind the scenes stuff. And I love how you guys do kind of write ups on some different aspects of the production. So viewers, go check out. Yeah, tell them your social media.
Yeah. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Tumblr and all the things, but you can also sort of the central hub is our website. It's adamandeveseries.com, and that's where you can find like our blog if you want to know more behind the scenes things and more sort of like nerdy film how-to stuff. Davey's done a great job at writing a lot of that stuff up.
And I like how the posts are numbered as chapters.
Yeah, and so audience members out there, you can work with your spouse. It's doable. They're smiling and happy, and it's a good story.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.
Until next time, everybody.